Yeah, it's very interesting. But well, I wanted to round out this topic. We, to kind of wrap it up with the two most controversial topics. We could end it with that.
All right.
So it's coming up. I hope you guys are ready.
Let's go.
And so, let's start off. We started about the mind and philosophy and things like that. And I figured we could go into the body. And, you guys, athletic trainers or people who are involved in athletics, how do you guys feel about the body positivity movement that's been happening within the last few years? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it a detriment to people? Or is it,
I think
positive?
For mental health, I think that it's great.
Yes,
for a lot of people. I think that there are many different body types out there in the world. Yeah. I don't think everybody can be skinny. I don't think everybody can be big. No. I myself will never probably break 180 pounds. But
I haven't seen 180 in years.
So, I mean, listen, we all come in all shapes and sizes, and I think that we should all find the happiest portion of ourselves. I've heard some backlash for some plus side models out there. I don't know if backlash is necessary for all of that. I do think that being as healthy as you possibly can is always the best philosophy, however. So you have to find whatever the healthiest is for you during that time period. So I would never bash anybody for their body or anything like that. I think that body positivity is a very, very big thing, and I do truly support body positivity. I just don't believe that just saying, oh, this is my body and I'm just gonna let it lay right here.
Yeah,
that's not what we want at all. I think that you have to find, like we all have to find, is that middle ground right there. Balance. Yes, the balance of life right there. And so what I would say to somebody who would just want to lay around and just say, oh, this is just my body, and be like, no, it's not just your body. This is you lazy right now. Whatever that body is. And that is also true to somebody who's very, very what's the word for it, thin as well, and they just have the ectomorph body right there that just doesn't gain weight, but they're still a slouch,
right?
And they're just not going to have any muscles. They're going to probably get injuries themselves in their own certain ways, shape and form. And you have to recommend to them, hey, maybe you should work out a little bit. You need to strengthen up this, make sure your posture is good and what have you, and make sure that you're eating the right things as well. I recommend health. I don't recommend body types or anything like that. So if a girl came up to me and said, hey, my butt's really flat right now. Okay.
Yeah.
what can you spot? What can you do? What can you do with your body? Yeah. And then we can work from there. Maybe that's just your body type. I don't have an opinion on that. I really don't. Yeah. I don't have an opinion on whether or not your belly's fat or not fat. I don't agree with that whatsoever. Mind you, for certain sports, since we are talking about that athletics right now, and we're talking about, say, gymnastics. Right. Since we're in the combat field, if we're talking about MMA, if we're talking about wrestling, if we're talking about kickboxing or boxing, you're going to have weight classes, and that shares in its own separate issues right there. So you might have to have a certain body type in order to be in a certain weight class, obviously. You're not going to have a 125 pounder that's going to have a belly. Let's be honest here. Same fashion, if you're a heavyweight fighter, you're probably not going to have the flattest of abs necessarily. You're not going to be the most shredded person in the whole wide world. But this is the different body types that we have to deal with. But I always just say, just try to be as healthy as you can, eat healthy. So if I had a soccer player come up to me and be like, hey, am I fat or am I skinny or anything like that, I'd say, well, how do you feel?
Yeah.
And how are you performing right now? And if it's a matter of performance, we can definitely work on that. I know things to do to make sure that, hey, you don't feel fast enough, we can get you faster. Let's work on the speed. You don't feel strong enough, we can work on this. We can get you stronger here. So I don't look at body types or anything like that. If I'm dealing with athletics, body positivity in itself, I'm all for it. Just be as happy as you possibly can be, I say.
So I guess I work in the high school field, and that teenage age, you guys know, is their minds are just out
rough.
There. It's like M80s going off in their head.
Yeah, right.
So I get asked that question all the time, especially from my athletes, male and female. I get those questions constantly. Am I too big for this sport? Am I too thin for this? And all that stuff. And like you said, my first response is, well, how do you feel?
Yeah.
And a lot of times, and it's strange to think that my athletes look at me and they're like, what do you mean? Like they're shocked that I'm asking, well, how do you feel? And to go off the body positivity stuff, it's, for me, I'm all about it. But if you're promoting an unhealthy lifestyle and you're just saying, well, I'm body positive, but you're slamming down a Crave case of White Castle, that's not body positive. That's body destruction.
Yeah.
You could be bigger, but be healthy. And I completely agree with you that I guess maybe instead of body positive, body healthy positive.
Yeah.
I think that maybe we could definitely work on that wordage. So that was pretty bad. But something along that, not just saying, oh, I'm big, but I'm positive that I'm big. No, you could be big or you could be small. And if you have a goal in mind of, I want to be something like this and you're working towards it and you just can't get there, but you're working towards it and you're doing the proper steps and you're staying healthy, working out, being active, you have a good mindset behind you. Yes, I am all for that. And to go into the athletic world, I actually, the biggest body issue stuff I always see, and many people always think you're always going to think like the gymnastic stuff and all that. I actually see with the wrestlers the most because especially in the high school level, when they don't know as well of the nutrition side of things, it's just, they're kids. They just genuinely do not know all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then B, they get the pressures from the coach, their parents, their teammates, and everyone else that's related to the wrestling team. And they're like, well, you need to be at this weight. And this is the weight and I'm watching kids, not eating and then running on a treadmill. And I'm like, this is heartbreaking to me when, you could have just started a little bit earlier before the season started, got your weight under control and, do what you need to do. Or the mindset of, I'm walking around 160 pounds, but I wrestle really well at 130 pounds. In high school, and trust me, I see it.
I have a question about that actually, especially you find growth spurts a lot during that time period, I'm sure. So one person could be wrestling at 130 one year and then all of a sudden they sprout out and they're
95 pounder next year.
And you're like, what happened here? So it has to be a very, very challenging thing during that time period, specifically for you, the AT, and also the athlete themselves, because of just the changes of the body. Because if freshman year to senior year, can be so much change.
Yeah. So the one thing I could say is the wrestling world is doing a fantastic job of controlling that. Before the season even starts, every kid gets hydration testing. There's a weight descent plan. I know in New Jersey, I'm not 100% with the other states what their plan is, but New Jersey is you can only go down to 7% body fat, and there's a weight descent plan. And you're only allowed to lose X amount of weight per week, depending on your body weight and everything. There's a whole formula out there. Track It Wrestling does it fantastic. They're pretty much the standard in New Jersey. And in my mind, at least that's something that's keeping them
healthy.
Honest.
Healthy,
yes, but honest. Because in the past, I've heard, horror stories of, a kid that needed to cut 15 pounds and they had 2 days. So they just, put on garbage bags, hopped on a treadmill, went for runs, and then hopped in a sauna with the suit still on. And they're going to drop
kids
weight.
Have died from having to cut weight and,
it's
wrestling meets.
To think for something that's going to last 6 minutes, really 6 minutes. And people are killing themselves just to, I got that win. Like that's hard to think. And that's, as an AT, that's hard to comprehend. So I always advocate to my athletes, wrestler, anything. How do you feel? Do you feel comfortable where you're at? Do you want to change something? If yes, let's work on it together. You're not alone in this. And that's where I feel like a lot of people, they put that mask of body positivity because they just feel alone. So they're just saying, well, I'm body positive, so everyone just has to accept it. Maybe you're not. And maybe you just want to talk to somebody and be like, well, I'm not really happy with this stuff, but I'm just going to say I am so no one else could, say anything bad about it.
Well, I mean, when the movement first started, it was really for people who had deformities, people who were burn victims, people who had genetic defects. And, it was understandable. It's like, of course, you want to be happy with yourself. Like you need to be body positive. And I think at some point, that was hijacked.
I agree.
And I think it was hijacked, as you guys both mentioned, by people who, are just unhealthy, have unhealthy habits, and want to justify their unhealthy habits. Yeah. And I know exactly what you're saying. Like, if you're 160 pounds, like, dude, you should not be cutting weight to 130 and trying to kill yourself. Yeah. Like, be happy with where you are. And, fight at where your weight is at.
Train it that way.
Without killing yourself, Right. And and once it was hijacked, I think that's what created the issue. And you have, especially in the United States of America, I mean, we have a huge obesity issue.
Yes.
I mean, I think they said something, a statistic I heard was that 45% of people who are 40 years or older are obese.
And we were talking about the
clinical obese. And the coronavirus
as well. It's actually hitting people
who are unhealthy, which is 45% of Americans who are 40 or older,
insane.
Which is completely
so that
insane.
is another reason for us to actually take more care for the coronavirus as well. So make sure that we are doing the right things and make sure that we are doing those steps, because it's not just the elderly, it's not just the young, it's also the 40% of America that could be actually unhealthy out there as well. So,
and I think, just going back to that, like I said, it's very unfortunate that was that body positivity, which should have been something that started as a good thing, has now morphed into this thing where people are bashing it because it went way too far. It's like
everything else,
like you said, glorification of unhealthy habits.
Yeah.
And we need to find that balance of figuring out, like, okay, you're just a person who you're never going to be, super thin. Maybe you're not a person that's going to ever have 6-pack abs, but if your BMI is like 45 or 40, you're probably morbidly obese. That's on you. Like, you've got to do something about that.
Yeah.
And I think as Americans, we have to be realistic with people instead of coddling people and telling them like, no, you're be body positive, you're fine. It's like to actually confront your clients and say, hey, like,
here's another thing too.
This is unhealthy.
Here's another thing too. I think that everyone is beautiful. Okay, you can actually say that to pretty much anybody. Hopefully, God willing, mind you, and I'm speaking more on a spiritual basis right there, and personality basis right there as well. I think that you can be an absolutely beautiful human being. I really, really do, and I think that should also be taken into account as well here, because self-image isn't necessarily what you look like. I don't know if, say, a blind person would have that same problem because they can't see themselves. They don't necessarily have that same insecurities that we have because we can see ourselves right there. So I think that it should be said that if you have a positive light in your life that says, hey, you are that wonderful human being, just make sure that you're taking care of yourself right now and being the best person that you can be. I think that can also lead to a much better outcome.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. I think like I said, you always have two opposing sides and people come to extremes. You have people who are throwing out, like, being like, no, you're just fat and you need to you need to lose weight because you're gonna die. And it's like, no, it's not. That shouldn't be how you approach people. Right, you should approach people like, listen, like you said, you're a beautiful person, and you know what, I want you to live long and have a healthy life. And you really should go to the gym. You really should start eating healthier. You should start taking care of yourself. And I don't think, I think, again, balance, finding the middle. And that's what we should do to prevent this crisis of obesity in the country.
Healthcare workers, instead of just, what you're saying is like, oh, you're fat, you need to go to the gym.
Yeah.
Help the person build their support system.
Right.
Because without a support system, I don't care what you do, it becomes nearly impossible.
It's a monumental task to get out of.
Yeah. And
a habitual negative that you keep doing every day.
And working with the younger athletes, that's what I try to push to my coaches is, don't just say you need to get to the weight room because we need to win games. Say like, all right, we're going to go to the weight room. We're going to train this because I want to keep you healthy. I want to teach you guys something that you never thought you could do. And one of my favorite things about, the AT job is, as crazy as it's going to sound, is when a person gets a pretty decent injury, I actually get a little excited because I know I could do my rehab, get the person the treatment, and you have a kid that's just thinks they're done for the season or their career, and then all of a sudden they're back that transition. And you could do the same thing with the obesity and the body positivity. You get a kid that, well, I'll never look like, I'll never look like him. I'll never look like her.
Right.
Whatever.
Right.
And you teach them the support system of who you need to talk to, where you pull your information from, and you see that transition. And in the high school level, you could really see that, especially from how young a freshman is, they're like 13, 14 years old, to a senior, which is like 17, 18 years old. That's a huge difference.
Yeah.
And seeing them over that 4 years, and for them to realize like things don't happen overnight. And for me, that's a huge thing about body positivity that always gets forget is they just think you're body positive because you have to be alone, and that's why you're positive, because you want to build up your walls. You're body positive when you have a good support system that brings you up, and then you have a full.
You yourself are positive.
Exactly, because now you're on a mountaintop of positivity rather than in a valley, bunker down. Yeah, I'm positive. Okay.
Yeah.